want to talk about loneliness and parenting.
Yeah.
I've got to go back and find the study, but I remember sitting there like stunned by it, that there was an old, I think it was Native American proverb, but it may have been from somewhere else, that no woman should be left alone with a crying baby. Was just kind of a cultural ethos. That's madness.
Yeah.
And I got to thinking about the suburban neighborhood I grew up in Houston, where you have a kid and you go home and they put you in this box in your house and you just stay there alone. And then you switch out, right? So when my wife was teaching, she would teach classes at night, and then I would just be with this kid who didn't want anything to do with me. And all I felt when I remember just sitting there sobbing, thinking, I can't get my kid to stop crying. What a loser. You know what I mean?
Right.
What a loser. Not knowing that a 6-month-old is a bundle of, it's a nervous system that's just out in the world, right? I could not get him to stop, but I didn't have anyone to tell that to.
Yeah.
And I just sat on it and sat on it and sat on it. And then I thought, I can't do this. I remember when my wife said, hey, the bottles, she had pumped and the bottles were in the fridge. I didn't know you're supposed to warm them up.
Right.
I remember giving my kid a bottle and he was shaking and I was like, oh, he loves this, right? And I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what I didn't know.
Right.
But I knew over time I sucked at this. I'm failing here. I'm just going to go work a little bit more. That's how I can help my family the best. How do we talk about being lonely as parents?
Yeah.
Especially as young parents or teenage parents. I don't know any parent that wants to feel out of control. Yet you're stuck in your house by yourself and all you have is whatever nonsense is out there.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that aloneness is always the enemy, right? Where, again, we think feelings give us a hard time or experiences give us a hard time, and feelings, experiences, things that happen, those can definitely all be hard. But the thing that's hardest for humans is feeling alone in a hard experience, feeling alone.
That's the definition of trauma, right?
That is trauma.
Yeah.
I think that's what trauma is. It's an event with high emotionality that's stored in aloneness.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, some events have higher potential for that, but yeah, you come home, you have this baby, nobody's taught you anything, and worse, they've told you, trust your instinct. You're like, well, my instinct might be to yell at a child, so I don't know if that's...
And they tell you, this is magic. It's so great.
Exactly.
Everything's wonderful.
So expectations are here, skills are here.
And reality's down here.
And reality's down there.
Yeah.
Where like when I see a new mom, especially, I'm always like, I really had a hard time in the beginning. And let me just tell you, the beginning was like 10 and a half months. And they're like, oh. I was like, yeah. There were more unenjoyable moments for me. I struggle with dependency. Like a lot of people, if you love being around people who are independent, then the beginning stages of parenthood are like really hard, especially hard. And you're right, when you're then alone. I think what we have the tendency to do, especially when we're alone, is we interpret struggle as our fault.
Yes.
And so then it's not even the struggle you're responding to as much as the story that it's your fault, or that someone more, better would do it differently, or that, again, it should be easier, or that you're not cut out to be a parent, or that how I feel in this moment is representative of how I'm going to feel every moment. We do all these grand things. We make it our fault. We make it global when we're alone.
And we make it forever.
And we make it forever.
What's the antidote to that?
I mean, I think there's a bunch of antidotes for that. I just cannot overstate the importance of having more of an education for parents. And I don't mean, I love Instagram. I do. I love a 60-second clip, but like that is a crumb for a parent because you also can't even describe something with nuance. And so we all get these more extreme views of what it should be like. So I think education is one, because even if you're a little alone with a crying baby, but in your head, you've learned enough times, it is not my job to stop a baby's crying. That's actually not my job. That's not good for anyone. This is not a sign of failure. Babies cry. I'm going to support my baby with these words I've learned and practiced. That moment is going to be hard, but it won't spiral you into an abyss. So I think education is just one thing. I think another thing is having some type of community or village. And even if that's online, it's because sometimes you're a new parent, you're in your house, you're like, I can't even really leave the house to get to this group. That is not one more sign that you're a bad parent. That is a sign you're in an incredibly difficult stage. And I do think one of the things, big picture, when we're struggling is we can either say this struggle is a sign of something that's my fault, or this struggle is a sign of something I need. And when I need something, that's not again, signal that I'm weak. Knowing what you need is like a really important sign of strength. And so maybe I do need to log on somewhere and have a safe talk. Maybe there is a Zoom group. Maybe there is a friend I can text, hey, were the first couple months like both incredibly exhausting and mind-numbing to you at the same time? Most people who are honest are like, that's exactly what it was. Exhausting and difficult and mind-numbing all at the same moment.
That I remember my wife saying she went and found 3. I have to go find them, but she went and almost ceremonially, but went and said like, hey, y'all are going to be my 3 ride or dies during this. I'm going to text you. It might be at 3 a.m. If you're up, and will you text me back? And it was just those, hey, this is happening. Huge. And getting 2 other moms who are like, exactly. So it's supposed to be like that. And then go, it still sucks, but okay. Good.
That's right, because you're removing, if you picture it, you're removing aloneness.
Yeah.
And once I know I'm not alone, meaning once I know there's not something wrong with me for feeling this way, it becomes lighter. It doesn't become easy. There's no moment of like balloons and rainbows, like when you remove aloneness, but the difference between hard and impossible is big.
Gosh, that's so good. The difference between, say that one more time.
The difference between hard and impossible is big. And I think a lot of moments in parenting.
That's so huge.
It's just they're hard. And that's what I think is so important for parents to know. The best it gets at certain moments is hard. You don't go from impossible to joyful. That is not an arc anybody has ever had. No. And ironically, the better we get at managing the hard, the less often hard becomes impossible. And then the more space there is for moments of joy and connectedness, right? But that actually all comes from how we learn to manage the hard. Because if not, the hard becomes impossible and crowds out everything. And I think what your wife spoke to, community, honesty, education, and just someone saying, you're not crazy.
You're not crazy.
That's how it was for me too. Or it wasn't like that for me, but that's okay. And it is like that for you. And that doesn't mean anything about you.
Or this is a good time. You should probably go talk to somebody. Right?
Exactly.
Or
level up.
I remember taking a picture of a rash and just sending it to her text group, and then being like, all of them wrote back like normal. And I was like, oh God, because I was like, oh, my kid's got some rare, whatever.
Yeah.
And it was just, okay, good.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
So I want to take a left turn here.
Great.
I want to talk to, let me say this, I'm just going to be as raw as I can with this.
Great.
So here's what I'm hearing from dads.
Okay.
Useless. They don't want me around. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to ask anybody. I definitely don't want to do this like my dad did. And also this gnawing sense of, this data just came out the other day that 25 to 35-year-old women have just passed men in earning potential. And like, I'm just redundant here. And what they're doing, because they can, because there's still society off-ramps for men, they're just opting out. They're either leaving or they are leaving with a video game controller. They're leaving on the couch. Or they are deciding, like what I did, I'll just work 90 hours. I can't help in any other way. I'll just put some money in the checking account and then I'll feel good.
I mean, you're asking me this question at a really good time because I've been really obsessed with dads in the last kind of couple months and really thinking about dads. And I'm also seeing other dads who are leaning in a way that I haven't seen or read about in, generations. And so I guess my number one thing I want to say to that is just dads really matter.
Okay.
Dads really matter. And I think when we look at the world we all want to build, where people can be in healthy relationships, where you know that strength is actually so deeply connected to how you relate to what's going on inside you. So yes, being strong relates to how you're able to manage your feelings. And dads have, I think moms have a role to play there too. Dads have kind of really amazingly unique role to rewrite a different story for their sons and their daughters. Right. And I think one of the things you're putting together, and I think a lot of dads struggle with this, is equating kind of knowing what to do with being important. Those are two very different things.
That took me A long time.
That's right. And dads can even still have a really positive impact on their kids when they don't know what to do. And I think there's a way of naming this, like every parent. But if dads feel like, oh, I'm just in the way and I don't know what to do, something that's always helpful to say to a kid is, I'm not sure exactly what to say right now, but I want to tell you I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what to do, and I'm worried I'm going to get it wrong, but I love you. You're a good kid. We're going to get through this. Like, you can just put out there the first part. I don't know what to do. I'm not sure how to respond to this. I feel like there are words I would want to say, and I don't have them right now. Yeah. And I want to assure you, I'm here with you.
There's a guy I have high respect for, and his kids are just extraordinary. And I asked, and he said, I just started taking him to breakfast once a week. So I started out with my son, and it was boring, and then it was boring, and then it was boring, and then it was, hey, Dad, I think there's this girl.
Yeah.
But it was, or, hey, explain to me some deep theological. But
Yes.
it only came from presence and presence and presence.
I think that's right. The input is more and longer than any of us in this efficiency-oriented world that we live in would want it to be. You do get a lot of rejection from your kids, and I think we take the bait
Oh my gosh.
way too often as if that's the whole truth, when if you actually reframe your kids' pushback or eye roll as they're trying to just figure out how much to take in from me and how close to be, and they're young, so by the way, no adults do that terribly well either,
Right.
but they're just kind of muddying through it, right? And they're also kind of unconsciously testing out, how much can I trust my parent? How much can I trust my dad? Because I'm going to say it wrong one time and I'm going to get overwhelmed. And before I even go to kind of the depth I'd want to have in the relationship, I need to know that I have a parent
That's it.
who can take it. And so they do kind of test out, I don't want to go to breakfast with you. I have nothing to say to you. And again, if we can just think, do not take the bait, right? And I think there's a way in which this has felt like weak. I can't let my kid get away with that. But I often tell people, like, imagine Steph Curry or LeBron, and you see them with like a group of 8-year-olds or 16-year-olds, and they're like, Steph Curry, you're the worst shooter in basketball. Right. And then you hear Steph Curry being like, you can't say that to me. You'd be like, Steph, like, get a hold of yourself. Right. Like, that's like, you know what a sturdy person does? They don't respond because they know who they are, and they don't need a 16-year-old or an 8-year-old to prove it to themselves. They're secure enough that they can hear something about them that they know isn't true, and they don't need to prove their own truth in the relationship. So I tell especially dads, like, channel your inner LeBron. Like, you would not want to see LeBron saying, you don't want to go to breakfast with me? You're like, LeBron, dude, like, come on. You're like NBA All-Star. Just like, take a deep breath, relax, you know?
Yeah. Okay, but the next step is, we're going.
Yeah.
It's almost like the Good Will Hunting scene. Like, we're having this. We're going to sit here.
Yes.
We don't have to say anything.
That's right.
I'm going to eat.
That's right.
So this is me like taking a Johnism, and you tell me if this is right or wrong.
Okay.
I often tell parents, and maybe I'm hitting the pendulum too hard, your 9-year-old doesn't get a vote in your emotional state. And like, and that may be too far, but I want parents to practice. They don't get a vote, dude. They're 9.
Yeah.
Like, we as a society don't let them drive or buy cigarettes, right? Yeah. Because they're 9.
Right.
And so my 9-year-old can pop off all day long. I can sit down when the smoke is clear and talk about that's disrespectful.
Yes.
Or in our house, we have a values, like, this is who we are. And that way I can point back and say, we all agreed. Like, you're at the table. This is not how we talk to each other in this house.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to outsource my feelings to my 9-year-old or my 15-year-old. And it's hard.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard.
Because then if we're not outsourcing it, the reason it's hard is we actually have to do it for
I've got to do it for myself. That's right.
But it is true. And so I don't mind you don't have a vote. I guess I'd put a tweak on it just because
it's a little bit
to me, I think
overdramatic.
Our kids, they feel our intention over our intervention. They feel our mindset, and they feel, are you looking at me like we're on the same team and you like me? Or even though you're saying the same words, are you looking at me like I'm a nuisance or like I'm difficult?
Are you looking at your phone while you tell me that?
That too, right? Yeah. So I think there's something too, and again, I think everything at Good Inside, we always come back to these two things at once. I could validate my kid's reality, and my kid needs to know I'm not overtaken by it, that I have their long-term interest in mind, and I won't let their short-term protest get in my way of doing what I know is good for them. This is like a pilot saying we need to make an emergency landing, and you might be on a plane being like, oh man, I have this meeting, I have this wedding, and maybe you think it's not that big of a deal, and you start protesting. Then imagine your pilot saying, oh,
You're right.
actually forget, we won't land.
We'll go through the storm. Yeah.
Or like, I wanted you to say to me, it does stink that you can't get to your wedding, but Anka, I also don't want you to change your mind. Right. And so I think you're taking your kid to breakfast and they're like, I don't want to go with you. I'm just going to stay quiet the whole time. Validate something in there. Just even if it's like, I get it. It's not what you want to do.
That's boring.
Yeah, I get it. I'm just like not high on your list of people to have interesting conversations with.
Right.
I get it, And we are going to go. And if you're quiet the whole time, that's how today's breakfast, but it's important for me. Mm-hmm. Maybe not for you. It's important for me that we get good time together. Like, I just think as a kid, they're not going to and then we think we're going to say these things. I think, John, this is the other part. We say these things like, it's important for me to get time together. You can just sit there, Maybe that's how today's goes, but we're going to go out for pancakes, whatever it is. We think our kid's going to look at us after and be like, Dad, you crushed that moment. Thank you. No.
Right.
Or I set a boundary, oh no, there's no sleepover on a Wednesday. And I think my kid's going to say, that is reasonable. I do have a school tomorrow.
Good call, Dad.
Good call. I love you. You're a sturdy leader. Like my kids have never said that to me. And so kids are allowed to protest. We still, as the leader of our home, just like the CEO of a company, you have to make good long-term decisions, even when the people around you are focused on short-term ease and comfort.
That though impacts, we have a very unintentional culture. We're just getting to the next thing. And that suggests if you bring a child into the world, you owe it to yourself and to your community and to your neighbors and to your kids. You have to start being intentional with your life.
At least I'm a realist, some percentage of the time. I prioritize short-term ease too sometimes, right?
I always say I don't want to fall off the wagon, but sometimes I'll park it and climb off and roll around in the mud and then I'll get back on it, right?
That's fine, right? Again, there's no perfection here. There's no parent I know, definitely not me, who's like, I am always making long-term good decisions. No, I'm like a human. Hello. Yeah. But there is something to a little inventory of like, all right, let me look at this week. What is I always say at Good Inside, we're very long-term greedy in our parenting. Our kids are going to be 18 and over. They're going to be out of our house for so many more years. Then they're in our house, which also means for so many more years than they're locked into a relationship with us, they will choose whether they want to be in a relationship with us. And so these long-term decisions matter. And we don't build strong relationships with our kids by saying yes to them all the time and giving into short-term stuff all the time because they end up resenting us. Why didn't you make good decisions? Why didn't you land the plane when you needed to?
A parent,
I needed a pilot. I didn't have my pilot license then. And so that stuff really does build a long-term relationship, but it won't lead to a short-term high five.